Hey, hello there. Welcome to Talking with Tony. Today we bring back one of our favorites. We bring back one of our members of our football panel. Mr. Kevin White joins us, and he's in spirit, folks. He's got that college football playoff banner in the background. Hey,
Uh,
Kev.
How are you? Good to see y'all.
I am cold. I'm coming to you from Memphis. It's 26 here right now. It snowed this morning. It didn't accumulate too much. It did accumulate some, but we're going to have more bad weather later on in the week and then on into the weekend as well. Probably snow probably not on your radar, is it?
I don't think so. There were some GFS models showing that they might get snow all the way down into Florida, and I was like, not a chance.
Oh, we will save the majority of the show for the college football playoff. I do want to give the Bulldogs, though, equal time, and but so we can actually begin with that. You and I talked at halftime. I remember talking to you earlier this year when the Bulldogs were trailing Kentucky, and I said, this is not going to be a problem. It was actually very close in the second half. I remember telling you I didn't feel the same way after watching the first half, and it wasn't Gunner Stockton per se, but I was surprised at, and I'm not discrediting Notre Dame's defensive line. They're fabulous, and the linebackers are great, and defensive ends are great. But I was a little surprised at UGA's inability to handle them. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's where that game was lost for the Dogs was in the line of scrimmage. Both sides of the ball, really. I think the defense played fairly well, but on the offensive side, I don't know whether it was Stockton's inexperience, game time inexperience, being able to call out protections and stuff like that, where it broke down, or if our left tackle just absolutely got his tail whipped all night. Um, but I mean, we just couldn't keep them out of our backfield. We couldn't get plays. We couldn't get plays to develop the way they should. And so I put that partly coaching as well and preparation. As where me as a couch coach would lay blame. You know, um, and I think it's a collective as a whole for the whole organization. I think Notre Dame was ready and Georgia was not. You know, they just got
Um,
outplayed, outcoached. Kudos to Notre Dame. They were the better team that night.
our condolences to Kirby Smart on the passing of his father as well, as somebody who had a dad who needed hip surgery and went in for that and never really got to because of the situation when my dad was, during that COVID period and that COVID time and all, we weren't able to advocate for his care, and that was hard, and it's still hard, I'm sure, for the smarts, and I'm sure that was some of that had to be on Kirby's mind as well. He's a human being. I am a little frustrated with all the fire Mike Bobo talks and all. I mean, the guy is 11-3 at SEC champs, and I understand that there's some frustration. Carson Beck was the Heisman Trophy favorite coming into the season, and added ETN, and they had for second year love it, but still, you're SEC champs, and that still means an awful lot in the world of college football.
It does. I mean, I'm the first one. I'll tell you, I've never been a Bobo fan, back from the Mark Rick days. I always felt like he was the one that couldn't get over the hump and win the big one, but I trust in Kirby Smart and his staff. As a fan, I think they do a tremendous job. I think Bobo, if you look at, everybody talks about Monken leaving, and going back to the NFL, how well he did when he was at Georgia, and they want to compare Bobo to his stats. If you look at the stat lines, they're not that much different, and some of them actually Bobo's better, right? So I'm not the guy calling for his head. Am I the guy that will call out his name during the game in a heated moment and be like, come on, Bobo?
But,
Yes, I will,
but Kevin,
based off play calling. But
is
um,
it Bobo's fault that the left tackle can't block? Is it Bobo's fault
absolutely
that
not.
is it Bobo's fault that UGA drops all these passes and some of them could go for like touchdowns or you move off sides on a fourth down situation? I mean, it's there was a whole lot of error, and yet it's Mike Bobo that the fan base say, fire Bobo, fire Bobo.
I know it. I mean, I think that Georgia was in such a drought for so long trying to get over the hump. And then we had 2 years of ultimate success winning the championship, right? And
Hmm.
then Monken leaves and we put Bobo back in that spot. And so I think that's where the fan base is looking at it, as far as the reason they're calling for Bobo's head is Monken was a lot more creative. The plays were the offense isn't a whole lot different, but there were some play calls that were a little more creative. Um, do I think it's Bobo's fault? Absolutely not. I mean, it's at the end of the day, I think Georgia was a little bit of a down year as far as their ability across the board at skill sets, where a running back room was beat up. Like you said, our receivers all of a sudden catch stone hands. They can't catch a cold. That's not Bobo's fault. Um, but you say Georgia had a down year, they had a winning record and won the SEC, like you said. I mean, you chalk that up and you go, hey, that's a pretty doggone good season. Yes, we didn't reach the ultimate goal, but let's regroup, keep fighting, you know?
Yeah. Uh, Yeah, I mean I mean you and I see it the same way, but it's just when I look at my face, and once again, I will say that what I said on my show not too long ago, that first round of the college football playoff, I realized I had a whole lot of college football experts on my Facebook feed that I didn't realize were college football experts. Like SMU, they don't belong in this. Boise State, they don't belong in this, and they weren't even playing that week. They were playing like the next week. Clemson, they don't deserve. I said, well, let's go back to four. But Danny said something very poignantly, knowing that I pull hard for the Buckeyes, and I took a couple of classes with Ohio State during the COVID time period. I think he realizes that, and he says like, "Well, your team wouldn't even been in it if we would have gone back to four." And I was like, "Well, you're right about that." So I guess I am glad that we were playing more than four
well,
teams. All right,
well,
so
it was kind of crazy that all the four that got the bye week lost, right? I mean,
however, I do have a perfect bracket at ESPN right now, where you had to, it's like the NCAA, you had to pick the whole thing before it started. So I went back and I do have Ohio State as my champion, and I'm terrified of the Texas game. But I first took Penn State against Notre Dame, and I did change that to Notre Dame. So on that entry, it's Ohio State versus Notre Dame, and Ohio State to win it all. We'll see if I can run the table or not. It's nice to be 8-0 though. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I bet. I bet.
And I'm coming off a perfect record this past week here of against spread picks. I went 4-0, so I'm excited about that. I'm not crazy about too much that we have to talk about. You want to talk? I want to say one thing real quick too. On the dropping of the passes, that might be in the distant memory of UGA people once they meet the Branch brothers who have committed now to UGA from Southern California. I don't know if there's a faster player in college football than Zachary Branch, and he's coming to UGA, and I think that's gonna. As a freshman, he was primarily used just as a kick returner and a punt returner, but he got a lot more time on the field this past year, and we saw what he could do as a receiver as well. So you get better special teams and you get better offensively with just him, and that's not even counting his brother.
Yeah, we're looking forward to see what he can do. That's always been kind of a spot for Georgia is trying to get elite receivers at the University of Georgia. We've always been known for having good running backs, receivers. We've had some really good ones over the years, but I don't know that, with the exception of a few, would be considered elite. Where you got schools like Ohio State, you got two of them out there. And it seems like every year you just reload at the receiver position.
I
Um,
really like Jeremiah Smith, the freshman, by the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. He's something to behold for sure. I mean, he's a problem for all defenses.
I've slowly accepted him. I knew that he was the ESPN gave him the number one player in the country last year, coming out of high school. That doesn't really mean anything to me because what they do in high school and what they do in college could be night and day. And I'm an Abuka fan, and Amika came back. That's actually he's the entry to my name on ESPN is Amika Abuka. And he's a senior that could have gone pro. People talk about Ohio State's name, image, and likeness money, and they can make that statement. But what they need to realize is some of these guys could have gone to the draft and made a whole lot more money, and they decided to come back to beat Michigan, didn't work out, win the Big Ten, didn't work out, win the national championship. That's the only basket left out there. But they could have gone pro and they came back for less money. Yeah, they do get the name, image, and likeness money, but they less money than for the draft. So I'm an Ibuka fan. I'll be all about Jeremiah Smith next year, but I still want to while I've got Amika this brief time, hope that he excels. All right, look, we've got to get into this NFL playoffs. Crazy finish to the regular season. Those of us who pull for the Falcons were heartbroken again yesterday. We really were heartbroken the week before on the Sunday night game. Jake and I went to the movie theaters, and I said, Jake, here's the deal. The Falcons control their own destiny, but they've got a tough game against Washington. I just want to sit in the back row of the movie theater so I can keep checking on the Falcons. And he can tell you, I was in such a good mood at halftime with them up 10, and then dadgummit, if they don't blow it at the end of regulation with the timeout situation, and then we lose it in overtime, don't even get the ball. And then there's that glimmer of hope yesterday, Kevin. Oh, if they win and get some help somehow from the Saints, and then somehow what's happening at halftime, the Saints were ahead 10 on the Bucks, and I was thinking well, the Falcons are going to win. So if the Saints can just hold on, we're going to be okay. Well, both situations didn't work out because the Falcons were up 7 at the half, couldn't even beat the Panthers at home.
Yeah, I mean, I swear, I think the Falcons have let me down twice yesterday. Once by watching them, right? And then watching them just blow it the way they did. And then also in my fantasy league, by watching them, I think they jinxed me in my fantasy league. I was in third place, which it's for money. So I was in the money. I went from being in the money to sixth place and out of it completely. And I think it's just all a hank just from watching the Falcons.
Well, where you kind of came up short, I had a glorious weekend as far as non-Falcons. I made it through with my teammates, 5 teammates on the eliminator, and we're in a contest with over 13,000 where you pick a team each week, and it's a substantial entry fee. So there's 6 of us. Myself and 5 others will split part of the shares. It ended up being there were 25 going in alive yesterday, and I think 8 stumbled. So 17 entries, I believe, go on and make it through either 15 or 17 successfully out of over 13,000. But we have one of them, which is quite the honor. And then I mentioned that ESPN college football playoff bracket that's unbeaten. Not only am I in a pool with that too, and if Ohio State can just win the national championship, nobody can catch me because I'm alone in first. I have the only clean entry right now. But on ESPN's College Bowl Mania, I might, I'm ahead of 99.8% of the people in America. It's not going to be good enough to win, but that's pretty good stat to be ahead of 99.8% of the entries. So once again, we'll need Ohio State in that game. Let's talk the NFL. Chargers and Texans is one of the games that I decided to have you pick. The Texans, they've had some injury problems. They've had a hard time duplicating their success last year, and so has C.J. Stroud. The Chargers are coming on. They're playing good football. They beat the Raiders yesterday, who, by the way, Bowers, the Raiders, probably one of the 5 best NFL football players already in the league. But can the Chargers now go on the road, and because the Texans are divisional champs, having to play at Houston? Can they win there in Texas?
You know, I kind of I kind of threw a dart at this one, and I think this is one of those that you try not to do and let your heart get involved. And I went with the Chargers simply because of my other dog, Lad McConkey. I
Hmm.
think he's outstanding as well, set rookie records. You know, and I do think the Chargers can get this one done. You know, aside from the passing game, I think they've got a decent run game. They're coming on playing good defense. It is going to be tough on the road, but 3 point spread, I think the Chargers can do it.
And I believe J.K. Dobbins, the running back who was out of Ohio State, I believe he's finally healthy. He's been hurt for years and years, so I think that should help the pass game out a little bit, give them a little bit of a break. So you're on the Chargers -3. Three of the four members of the panel were on the Chargers. Only Stormy was on the Texans +3, and that's probably a good thing. That for y'all that Stormy's on the Texans. I have a pick in the Steelers Ravens game. It's Saturday night. It's Amazon because the NFL now wants people to buy the streaming services. If it's not Peacock, it's Amazon. So you'll have to have Amazon Prime to watch the Steelers and the Ravens. The Ravens are favored by 9.5. And my only pick in the NFL playoffs, my selection is the Pittsburgh Steelers +9.5. Are you with me?
I am with you. I am with you. The Steelers didn't look so good yesterday, but I think that was a little bit about motivation, of their end pretty much. So they didn't have a whole lot to play for. I mean, that divisional championship, yeah, it made a difference, but Baltimore had already won, before their game completed. And I think Penix, when they put Penix on or that was the Falcons, sorry. See, they're still jinxing me.
That's right.
But Russell Wilson didn't look all that great yesterday. He looked like he was just kind of going through the motions a little bit. And Pickens didn't have a good day at all. He looked like he was still wearing the red and black with all the drops he had, but I think this game is going to be, they beat the Ravens earlier in the season, and I think they can go on the road and make this a tighter contest. I still think the Ravens win this game, but the 9.5, I'll take those points with the Steelers.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're on the same page. Sunday, there's two NFL games. The first one that we have to select is the Broncos and the Bills. The Bills are favored by 8.5. And I got to be honest with you, I did not think Bo Nix was going to have the kind of year that he has had for the Denver Broncos. He's not Jaden Daniels, but he has done a very nice job for Denver. And I didn't see this coming at all. If you would have told me 4 or 5 years ago when we were watching him play in the SEC, well, it's more like 2 or 3 years ago, actually, in the SEC, I sure would have told you no. And I think he did develop some at Oregon, became a little bit better of a quarterback. But this is a hard deal for them to go to Buffalo. This is one of those situations where I know you like Denver with the point spread. This might be one of those situations where you think Buffalo wins the game, but Denver kind of keeps it close.
I do. That's 100% correct. I think the Bills pull it out at home in a tough environment, lake effect, cold and snow up there. Denver's not all that warm itself, so I don't think it's going to be too tough there unless they get ridiculous amounts of snow. But I agree with you. Bo Nix has come on strong this year. He's playing above his potential, I think. Their run game has started to get together, and I think they'll make a dogfight out of this. And we've seen that from the Bills too. They kind of up and down at times, where Josh Allen's playing lights out and they look unbeatable. And then they turn around the following week and it's like, who is this? Who's playing right now? And so with the 8.5 point spread, I would definitely have to go take those points with the Broncos. I think it'll be a little bit closer game than that.
Okay. And then the Eagles and the Packers play Sunday afternoon in Philadelphia also. A little bit of a kind line to those taking the Eagles because some markets have this already, Philadelphia -5. But for our purposes, I selected Eagles -4. You like Philadelphia here on what should be an excellent football game.
I do. And that's kind of stemming from a little bit we saw this past weekend. Green Bay struggled a little bit. I realized they didn't have all their starters out there, but then Jordan Love got hurt. Then their backup got a thumb injury. So it's kind of in question of what's going to happen at the quarterback position for Green Bay. And the Eagles have been playing outstanding. I mean, I think the Eagles, Ravens, Lions, it's kind of a toss up right in there. Who's the better team this year? And so I think the Eagles are one of those top spots, and I think they're going to handle business
Okay.
this week.
I think it's going to be an excellent game, and they might very well do that. But I could see this game being 20 24-24, and the Eagles like getting a touchdown, like you say, and covering the number. But I just think it's going to be a tight game. I don't think Green Bay is going to get blown away. I think they'll represent themselves pretty well, and I think Jacobs can run the ball. That's going to be a big key for these teams in the NFL. Can you run the football? And I think Jacobs of Green Bay can do that.
Well, yeah, you say that, and then I'd say Saquon Barkley. I mean, he's a little
Well, that's
perturbed.
kind of a given,
He's
right?
he's a little perturbed. He didn't get to hit the record this past week where they held him on the sideline. So he's gonna have something. He's gonna have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. You know.
What a difference. Mike Evans, they put him back in and they throw the ball and they totally don't need to throw the ball just to be able to get him enough yardage so he gets a $3 million bonus.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Mm.
That's I don't know what that's all. I get it. It's a business. The NFL is a business, and you got to protect your assets. So I get why they didn't play Saquon, but because he would have had to have what a little over 100 yards to break the record, or right at 100 to tie it. So a little over 100 to break it. Um,
I'll run. I will run down everybody's picks in a moment, but I do want to say one five-star selection in the NFL. The rest are all on college. The one five-star selection, Danny is 7-10 with his 5 stars. And I laugh because 5 stars has just been humiliating for the entire panel this year, but he's got the Chargers -3 as his 5 star, and that's the only NFL selection. In fact, as I look, John leads the panel at 94 and 90. He's 8 and 9 and 5 stars, and he's actually improved lately. Stormy's 4 games under 500. He's 6 and 11 with his 5 stars. Kev is 7-10. Danny 7-10, and I'm 9-8. We have got nothing to celebrate or feel good about when it comes to 5 stars, and very little when it comes to overall selections. I am, after going perfect last week, I am back to 3 games over 500, so I'm happy about that. And I have no soccer plays. Now we got to talk the two college football playoffs. They start Thursday night. It's Notre Dame and Penn State. I'm going to surprise Jake. I didn't tell him, but I'm going to get him to get some footage for me from those old Notre Dame Penn State games of the 80s. There's another one in the early 90s where Jerome Bettis catches a touchdown pass in the snow for Notre Dame in the final seconds. I still think they had to have a 2-point conversion there to tie. It was pre college football playoff time. But Kevin, you remember being a kid and seeing them two teams play in cold weather, and they were both independents before Penn State became a part of the Big Ten. They used to play each other every single year, either in Happy Valley or South Bend.
hmm Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good battle. I think it's gonna be a really good game to watch, fun game to watch. Um, you know,
How does Penn State win it? Tell me how Penn State wins it.
I think Penn State. I think they just have more weapons, at their disposal than Notre Dame does. I don't think Notre Dame is as good as they looked against Georgia. I think they came out with probably the best game they played all season against Georgia, and Georgia's not playing to their potential. I think Penn State's a better football team than they've shown in a couple of their contests. Uh, their tight end is outstanding. I forget his name.
Tyler
Um,
Warren. Tyler
yes,
Warren is probably who you're talking about.
yeah. So they've got him. Their run game is doing well, and I think both of them are predicated more off the run than anything else. But when it comes down to it, I think Penn State and their quarterback, they just have the ability to beat them with bigger plays down the field. Where I think, Riley for Notre Dame is probably a good chunk of Notre Dame's offense, beating you with his arm and his legs, but he's not throwing any huge deep balls, explosive plays. He's kind of dink and dunking you a little bit and then running the ball. And I think Penn State's run defense is going to be a decision maker in that game. I think they're going to step up and be able to shut some of that down.
One player doesn't make a team, but Abdul Carter's health would be very important to that defense for Penn State. And
Mm-hmm.
he's an absolute stud. I feel like uh, I feel like this is going to be a good football game. It's kind of crazy that then I'm sure these fans love being down in Miami that are being able to go to the game, those that had the money to travel, because ordinarily, like you said, that game would be up at north in adverse conditions and probably in snowy conditions, considering what the country is facing right now. So the
Well,
fact that
maybe
they're going
we'll
to be
get lucky and the GFS models are right and it'll snow in Miami. Right.
That could, hey, look, I guess stranger things have happened, right? I mean, so well, we'll see. As I look at the panel's picks, I don't have a pick on this game, but it's split. John and Kevin were taking Penn State plus 1.5, and Danny and Stormy are taking Notre Dame minus 1.5. And I think that would be the opinion on prognosticators across the country is going to be very split because this is powerhouse. These are blue blood. Some people hate that term, blue bloods. They're college football royalty. It's not always. It's not always about the SEC. Sometimes it is about other schools. And if you look back at the course of history, whether it's the Four Horsemen of Notre Dame or it's Newt Rockne or it's the national championships and then Rocket in our lifetime when he led them to it, and Tony Rice, the quarterback from the state of South Carolina in 1988 that won their last national championship. And then Penn State, the Joe Paternos, the great defenses, the linebackers, people like Jack Ham that played at Penn State, and then people like Matt Suey running. I mean, this is blue blood football right here. So this is going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be fun to watch because I am such an Ohio State fan. I can just sit back and enjoy this. I'm not a person who eats popcorn, but if I did eat popcorn, I'd have my popcorn on the couch. Just saying, this is great.
I'll tell you, you can mark this down. I didn't choose this one as my 5 star, but Penn State wins this one simply because Rudy was offsides. Right.
Okay. All right. And that'll make Georgia Tech people happy too. That you came up with that. Did you hear that, Stormy? All right. Shout out to Donnie Laney, who actually made a very nice, considerate post. He is anything but humble, but he calls himself the humble dog. But he talked about the craziness of the 48 hours and the tragedy, and our prayers certainly go to everybody that's been affected in New Orleans in that terrorist situation. But he talked about the craziness and meeting good people from opposite schools and stuff. I thought it was just a very meaningful post that he had. I'm sure he was down a little bit about Georgia losing, but I thought it was a very thoughtful perspective on his post.
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear.
Let's do Ohio State and Texas because we have 4 5 stars on this game, and 3 have Ohio State. And I am the lone wolf that has Texas plus 6. I do hope the Buckeyes win, but I've been watching this team. I watch this team religiously every year. I went to South Bend last year to see them play. And if I can send Jake my cell phone footage, if he can make it look good, he'll put it up. But it didn't look good on the footage I shot. I've got the shot of the last, I think it's Chip Trainum, who has transferred twice since I shot it, but he scores on the last play of the game. This is just last year in South Bend as the clock is running out. And I'm right by the Ohio State band. So I take my cell phone and just, to the band and all. So if he can make that look good, I will send it to him and we'll throw it up there. But I am terrified of this. And that was against Notre Dame. And I'm thinking in my head, like, have Notre Dame win, have Ohio State win, get Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Atlanta. But we'll see. Could be that Ohio State can't win it all. But I'm terrified of this Texas team playing. The fact that the Buckeyes have to play in Dallas, in Texas's backyard, Kevin. If Ohio State runs the table here and does something that no college football program has ever done, win 4 games in the postseason to win it all, you would have asked them to play the extra game, go out and beat number one Oregon out in the Rose Bowl, beat Texas in their backyard, and then go to Atlanta. And I thought they would be playing UGA, and the assignment there would have been to beat UGA in Atlanta. That's an awful lot to ask. And even though they've looked so good against Tennessee and so good against Oregon, can they continue to play at that level? That concerns me.
I feel your concern. I think that's more of your heart, though, because if I look at it just from a tactical perspective, that Ohio State, the way they played defense the past 2 games, that alone will beat Texas. They got to put some points on the board, and you have weapons everywhere. With Smith and Ibuka and your quarterback and your running backs and everybody there. I mean, they're explosive on offense. They just got to be able to stop their opponent. And I feel you to be scared a little bit. It is in their backyard. They're going to but it is a playoff game. It's not like they can have their whole home crowd there. If Ohio State travels well, it'll be kind of split in there. But at the end of the day, Ewers, I'm not as impressed with Ewers as everybody else in the country. I mean, I think he's a good quarterback. Do I think he's an elite quarterback? Not so much. I think he holds on to the ball a little too long. His delivery is a little long. Hang on a sec. Somebody answer this phone. Um,
Yeah.
and then, so I think especially defensive rush, they get to Ewers several times, put him on his back. I mean, I think that's the difference in the ball game. Ohio State's defense is just going to be too much for them. Um, does Texas have weapons? Absolutely. Are they going to score some points? Absolutely. Um, but I think Ohio State, just in the end, they're going to wear them down. Um, and like I say, 6 weeks ago, I wouldn't have claimed that Ohio State is as good as they are. Just looking at their course of work throughout the season up at that point. But these last two games against Tennessee and Oregon, they look outstanding. They look unbeatable to me. Very, very difficult to beat. You know, I was
Yeah.
worried if we beat Notre Dame, I was like, I don't know if the Dogs got what it takes to beat Ohio State this year. You
Well,
know,
your offensive line would have had fits with people like Sawyer and JTT and Ty Hamilton and Tyler Williams. I mean, those guys would have been in the backfield, but I'm thinking the UGA defensive front would have been in the Ohio State backfield because even though Ohio State has looked good on the offensive line the last two games, this is still a team that's without the Remington Award winner and Seth McLaughlin, which is you just can't replace that Remington Award winner. And they're also without they're without 40% of their offensive line who will be first round NFL draft choices. And they do have the tight end back. And Will Kastamerican, no, he's number 89. And he's been a big boost. He came back for the Tennessee game. He missed the Michigan game. And he has helped. He is a great blocking tight end. He's kind of like George Kittle from that standpoint, not as physically imposing as Kittle, but he's a great blocker. But I still feel like people like Mikael Williams and Nazir Stackhouse, these guys, Brinson, UGA, they would have been like in the Will Howard stripping him of fumble. That would have been the problem, the Ohio State offensive line.
I would love to agree with that. I mean, I think those guys are studs on the Georgia's defensive line there. But what I've looked at over the course of this season is we struggled to get pressure on the quarterback when we were only sending three or four from the line. We were having to send an extra man from a linebacker position or a corner blitz or a safety blitz. We were having to send extra guys in to get that pressure on the quarterback. Where in the past 3-4 years, we've had those guys up front making that push, striking those blockers and getting into the backfield. And we did have some success with that, but it's not as often as we have in years past. And so it took sending Jalen Walker or sending somebody else in there, to get that pressure and collapse a pocket to make them move or get rid of the ball faster than they intended. You know,
Well, there's no doubt in my mind UGA will be better offensively next year. But if Walker goes pro and you lose somebody like Starks and you lose those other guys that I just mentioned, it's hard for me to believe the defense can be better than it is this year. But we'll say, Kevin, let me run down everybody's picks. We got a little bit less than 3 minutes. Let's start with our leader, John Perkison. He's 94 and 98 and 9 in the 5 stars. In the college ranks, he's got Penn State plus 1.5. His 5 star is Ohio State -6. We're going to hear that 3 straight times. He's got the Chargers -3, the Ravens -9.5, Buffalo -8.5, the Eagles -4. Stormy is 90 and 94. He's 6 and 11 with his 5 stars. He's got Notre Dame -1.5. His 5 star, Ohio State -6. In the NFL, he goes for the Texans +3, the Ravens -9.5, Buffalo -8.5, and he's got the Packers +4. Kevin is 84 and 100. He's 7 and 10 with his 5 stars. He's on Penn State +1.5. His 5 star, just like John and Stormy's, those Ohio State Buckeyes. Get it done, Brutus, with Ohio State -6. In the NFL, the Chargers -3. He's with me, the Steelers +9.5. He's got Denver +8.5 and the Eagles -4. He's got a great mixture there. Two favorites in the pros, two favorites and two underdogs. Danny is 89 and 95. He's 7 and 10 with his 5 stars. He goes with Notre Dame -1.5. The Texas Longhorns, he joins me with the +6. Yeah, I think he may be anti-Ohio State too. He picks against them an awful lot. His 5 stars to Chargers -3. And the NFL, he goes with the Steelers +9.5, the Bills -8.5, and the Eagles -4. I am 40 and 37. I am 9 and 8 with my 5 stars and 14 and 6 in soccer. Set that soccer aside. I've got no soccer for you this week. My 5 star is the Texas Longhorns +6, and I would be happy to be wrong here. And I'm going to do one NFL selection too. Take the Pittsburgh Steelers +9.5. Got a little over a minute to go. Kevin, final thoughts on that Texas Ohio State game from you, please.
Texas, Ohio State. It's going to be a battle royal. I mean, it's going to come down to that defense. Like I said, I truly believe that Ohio State's is better. Um, Another note here, my picture behind me, I almost made it the horns down for you. You
I
know,
would have liked that.
it's going to happen. I just don't think I don't think Texas has got what it takes. Ohio State looks like the more complete team in all three phases of the game. Um, OSU gets it done. You know.
All right, I appreciate that. And in honor of my Oklahoma friends who like to say, when people ask them what time it is, they like to say it's 3 o'clock and Texas still sucks. Is what they like to say when they're asking about it. Folks, for Kevin White, for Jake Barton, I'm Tony Jones in Memphis, Tennessee. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you guys. And we'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.